Story 1. The campsite that shouldn't exist. I'm not the kind of guy who believes in things. Ghosts, omens, the universe sending signs. That always felt like a luxury for people who'd never had to scrub black mold out of a rental unit's grout at 2 a.m. I fix things. I measure twice, cut once, and I don't cry at funerals. So when my older brother, Leo, suggested a 4-day solo hike through the Kaskamack woods to clear my head after the divorce, I laughed. "You want me to commune with squirrels?" I asked. "I want you to remember you existed before her," he said. That was Leo. Annoyingly wise, annoyingly kind, and annoyingly still married to his college sweetheart. He lent me his best tent, his bear canister, and a topo map with a red circle around a spot called Twin Springs. "Best campsite I've ever found," he said. "Off the main trail, but the map doesn't lie." He was wrong. The map didn't lie, but the woods did. Day 1 was easy. Blue sky, pine needles soft underfoot, the kind of quiet that feels like a held breath. I followed the logging road until it shrank to a deer trail, then to nothing. By 3 o'clock, I was bushwhacking through ferns that slapped my thighs. The GPS on my phone flickered, no signal, but the satellite view still worked. According to it, Twin Springs was 200 yards east. I pushed through a wall of alder and stopped. The campsite sat in a perfect bowl of grass. Too perfect. No rocks, no fallen branches, no saplings trying to claim the space. It looked like someone had mowed it yesterday. In the center, a ring of gray stones formed a fire pit, and inside the pit, not ashes, not charcoal, but a neat pile of white bones. Small ones, rabbit-sized maybe, but arranged, a spiral. I stared for a long time. My neck prickled. "That's weird," I said out loud, just to hear a human voice. The woods didn't answer, but I felt them listening. I told myself it was probably just some kids messing around, or a ritualistic hiker. People get into weird stuff. I set up the tent anyway. Leo's expensive 4-season dome, bright orange, impossible to miss. I cooked freeze-dried spaghetti on my little stove, and the smell of garlic and tomato felt like a middle finger to the quiet. I ate watching the light drain from the sky. That's when I noticed the other tent. It was pale green, old-school A-frame, pitched maybe 30 yards north. I hadn't seen it when I arrived. Couldn't have. I scanned the whole clearing. "Hello," I called. No answer. No movement. The tent's door flap was pinned open, and inside I could see a sleeping bag laid flat. Not rumpled. Flat, like someone had smoothed it out and then walked away. I walked over. I'm not brave. I'm just someone who needs to know. The tent smelled like mint and something else dusty, like old books. A single hiking boot sat near the entrance. Left foot. Size 9. Inside the sleeping bag, someone had tucked a note card. "Gone to find water. Back soon." The ink was blue ballpoint. The handwriting was neat, almost childlike. No date. I crouched there for a full minute, listening. The woods were silent. No birds. No wind. Just a low, humming pressure in my ears, like when you yawn on an airplane. I went back to my tent and zipped myself inside. I told myself the owner would return by nightfall. They always do. They didn't. Night came fast, the way it does in deep forest. 1 minute a bruised purple twilight, the next a black so total I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. I had a headlamp, but I didn't turn it on. Something told me not to advertise my presence. I lay in my sleeping bag, fully dressed, my folding knife in my right hand. The hum in my ears had stopped. Now there was just breathing. not mine. It was slow, rhythmic, coming from the direction of the green tent. Not a person's breathing. Too even. Too wet. Like something with a very large chest cavity was asleep just outside my tent wall. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I counted my breaths, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, the way my therapist taught me after the divorce. But this wasn't anxiety. This was knowing with absolute certainty that if I unzipped that tent, I would see something that didn't have a face. At some point, I fell asleep or passed out. When I woke, gray dawn was seeping through the fabric, and the breathing was gone. The green tent was still there, and a second boot had appeared outside it. Right foot, matching, but no footprints in the grass leading to either boot. I packed my tent in 60 seconds flat, left the freeze-dried meals, left the stove. I grabbed my backpack, my water filter, the map. I started walking west toward the logging road. The forest felt different. The trees were too close together, birches with white bark that looked like skin, papery and flaking. I walked for an hour, then 2. The logging road never appeared. My GPS showed me moving, but the terrain didn't match. According to the screen, I'd crossed a creek an hour ago, but I hadn't seen any water. I stopped at a fallen log to check the map. That's when I saw the journal. It was wedged between 2 roots, covered in a fine gray mold, but the leather cover was intact. Embossed on the front, property of M. Corwin. I opened it to a random page. Day 3, the campsite moves. I woke up facing south. I pitched the tent facing north. The stones are different. The spiral of bones, it's tighter today. Tighter like a fist. I flipped forward. Day 6. I saw the hiker. The one from the green tent. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, just watching me. I called out. He didn't answer. His mouth was open too wide. Not screaming, just open. Day 9. I'm not lost. I'm kept. The last entry was smeared, the ink blurred by water or tears. Day 11. If you find this, don't sleep inside the stone ring. Don't eat anything that grows near the white birch with 3 trunks. And whatever you do, when you hear your name from the fire tower, don't answer. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking. I looked up, and through a break in the canopy, I saw it. The fire tower. A rusted steel structure rising above the trees, its caboose-like top cabin listing slightly to the left. No ladder that I could see. Just iron rungs bolted to the legs, disappearing into the gray sky. And from that cabin, faint but clear, a voice called down. Leo? Leo, is that you? My brother's name, in my mother's voice. She'd been dead for 6 years. Story 2. The voice calling from the fire tower. I should have run. Any rational person would have run. But grief is not rational, and neither is hope. My mother sounded so real, the slight lisp she had on sibilance, the way she'd say Leo like it was 2 syllables. Leo. I walked toward the tower. The forest didn't try to stop me. That should have been a warning. The path opened up, ferns bowing away, as if the woods were parting to let me through. The tower loomed larger with each step, its iron rungs crusted with rust that looked like dried blood in the overcast light. Mom! I called up. My voice cracked like I was 15 again. No answer. Just a low creak from the cabin, 50 feet up. I grabbed the lowest rung. Cold bit through my gloves. The metal was slick with moisture, but the rungs held. I climbed. 1 rung. 2. 10. The ground fell away, and the trees became a carpet of green and brown below. I didn't look down. I looked up at the cabin's trapdoor, which hung half open, revealing only darkness. 20 feet, the voice came again. Closer now. Leo, I've been waiting so long. Come inside. I made your favorite. My mother never cooked. My father did all the meals. She burned water, but the voice didn't waver. It was warm, coaxing, the same tone she'd used when I was 6 and scared of the dark. I kept climbing. At 40 feet, I noticed the rungs were wetter. Not with rain, with something stickier. I looked at my glove. Dark red streaks. I wiped them on my pants and kept going. Because that's what you do when you've already lost everything. You keep going. The trapdoor was 3 rungs away when I heard the journal's words in my head. Don't answer. But I hadn't answered. I just climbed. That was different, right? Leo. So close now, just above the trapdoor. Look at me. I pulled myself onto the platform. The cabin was empty. No furniture. No windows, just metal slats that let in thin lines of light. And in the center of the floor, a single object. A cassette tape, its brown spool exposed, wound around a nail hammered into the floorboards. The tape was still moving, playing. My mother's voice came from the tape, but the tape had no speaker, no power source. It just spoke. You were always my favorite, you know? Not your brother. He was too soft, too kind. But you knew when to break things. I stood there, frozen. The trapdoor was still open behind me. I could climb down. I should climb down. The tape rewound itself with a screech, then played again. Different words this time. Don't leave, Leo. The forest gets lonely. The last one stayed for 3 weeks. He ran out of water on day 12. Drank from the creek. You saw what that creek does. I thought of M. Corwin's journal. Don't eat anything that grows near the white birch. Who are you? I whispered. The tape hissed. Then my mother's voice dropped an octave. Became something else. Something that had never been human. I am the space between the map and the ground. I am the campsite that shouldn't exist. And you, Leo, you are already mine. I ran. I didn't climb down. I jumped. The fall was 20 feet. I landed in a pile of last year's leaves. Something in my ankle snapping with a sound like a twig. Pain shot up my leg, white and hot. I crawled. Dragged myself through the ferns, through the mud, until I collapsed against a tree. When I looked back, the fire tower was gone. Just trees. Endless trees. I sat there, ankle swelling, and I cried. Not for the pain. For my mother's voice, which I would now never hear again without wondering if it was really her. I don't know how long I lay there. Hours, maybe. The light didn't change. That gray, perpetual twilight that made it impossible to tell morning from afternoon. Eventually, I forced myself to stand. My ankle held if I put weight on the heel. I tore a strip from my shirt and wrapped it tight. I had to find the logging road. But first, I had to find anything familiar. I limped through the woods until I found a creek. Not the one from the map, just a thin trickle over black rocks. I knelt to drink, then stopped. M. Corwin's warning. Don't eat anything that grows near the white birch. But the creek was just water. Water was safe. I cupped my hands and drank. Tasted like nothing. Then like pennies. Then like the inside of a memory. The smell of my childhood basement. Damp and mildewed and full of things we'd forgotten. I spat it out, but it was too late. The water was already in me. That night, I didn't dare sleep. I found a fallen tree with a hollow beneath it and crawled inside. My ankle throbbed. My stomach churned. And in the dark, I heard footsteps. Not heavy, deliberate. The footsteps of someone who knew exactly where I was. A flashlight beam swept past the hollow's opening. Then a man's voice. Tired. Flat. Another one. They always hide in the same places. I held my breath. The beam came back, paused at the hollow's entrance. I could see his boots now, hiking boots, well worn, caked with mud. He crouched down. "You can come out," he said. "I'm not like the others." I didn't move. He sighed. "My name is David. David Corwin. I wrote the journal you found. And I've been here for 47 days. I stared at his face in the flashlight's glow. Gaunt, bearded, eyes that had stopped being afraid a long time ago. "The voice in the tower," I said. "What is it?" David smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "That's the funny thing," he said. "I still don't know, but it wears your dead like costumes. And it's very, very hungry." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My brother's topo map. He'd drawn new lines on it. Names for places that shouldn't exist. The throat, the bone spiral, the mother's tongue. David led me to his camp. A crude lean-to made of branches and moss, hidden in a shallow ravine. He had a small fire going, the smoke thin and gray, barely visible. He gave me a strip of dried venison and some water from a collapsible bottle. "This water's from a spring I found on the third day," he said. "It's safe. I've tested it. The other water, the creek water, it changes you. Not all at once. Slowly, you'll start hearing things, seeing things out of the corner of your eye. Then you'll start talking back." I chewed the venison, tasted like ash. "Why haven't you left?" I asked. David stirred the fire with a stick. "Because I can't. That's what the campsite does. It lets you think you're leaving. You walk west for 3 days and then you look up and you're back at the stone ring. The spiral of bones is always a little different. Tighter. Like a fist, remember?" I remembered. I'd read his journal. "There's a pattern," he continued. "Every 12 days, the forest shifts. The trees move. The creeks change course. And on the 12th night, it walks." David looked at me. In the firelight, his pupils were too large. Not dilated, too many. Like someone had taken a pen and drawn extra dots in the irises. "You'll know it when you see it," he said. "But don't look too long. The ones who look too long, they end up in the green tent." My blood went cold. "The green tent, that was yours." He shook his head. "No, that tent belonged to the woman before me. Her name was Elena. She left her boots by the entrance on day 9. On day 10, she walked into the trees and never came back. But the tent stayed. The boots multiplied. Multiplied. Every time someone new arrives, another pair appears. Another note. Another gone to find water." He laughed. A dry, rattling sound. "There's no water to find. There's only the voice. And the voice lies." I stayed with David for 2 days. We didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. He showed me how to avoid the white birches. They grew in clusters, their bark warm to the touch like skin. He showed me which mushrooms were safe. None. All of them made you dream of drowning. And he showed me the stone ring. We crept to the edge of the clearing at dusk. The campsite was empty. My orange tent was gone, swallowed by the forest. In its place stood a different tent. Blue this time, a brand new North Face, still with the tags attached to the zipper. "That wasn't there this morning," David whispered. We watched. After a few minutes, a figure emerged from the trees. A woman in her 20s wearing a bright yellow rain jacket. She looked around the clearing, confused. She pulled out her phone, frowned at the screen. Then she started setting up the blue tent. "Don't," I said, but David grabbed my arm. "If you warn her, the forest takes you instead. I've seen it happen." So we watched. The woman made dinner. She ate alone. She went to sleep. And at midnight, the breathing started. Came from the green tent this time, the old A-frame. The tent was still there, even though Elena had vanished weeks ago. The breathing was loud, wet, hungry. The woman in the blue tent never woke up. In the morning, her boots were outside her tent. Left foot first, right foot followed at dusk. And a new note appeared inside her sleeping bag. "Gone to find water. Back soon." On the third morning, I woke up and David was gone. His lean-to was empty. His fire was cold. But his journal was lying on the ground, open to a new entry. Day 48. I can feel it inside me now. The creek water talks to me at night. It says if I bring it one more, just one more, it will let me go. It lies. But I'm so tired of being alone. I found him at the stone ring. He was kneeling in the center, arranging the bones into a tighter spiral. His fingers moved with a precision that wasn't his own. When he looked up, his eyes were completely black. No white, no iris, just twin voids. "Leo," he said, and it was David's voice, but also my mother's, and also the woman in the blue tents, and also 100 others I didn't recognize. "You've been here before. You'll be here again. The campsite doesn't forget." I ran. I didn't look back. I ran until my ankle gave out, and then I crawled. I crawled through ferns and mud and over roots that felt like fingers. The forest twisted around me, trees closing in, the sky disappearing. And then I was out. Just like that. One step, I was in the dark woods. The next, I was on the logging road, my brother's truck in sight. The sun was setting. A normal sun. A normal sky. I drove home. I didn't stop. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. That was 6 months ago. I've told no one the full story. Not Leo. I told him I got lost, sprained my ankle, came home early. He bought it. People believe what they want to believe. But last night, I found a pair of boots on my front porch. Left foot, size 9. And this morning, when I went to make coffee, there was a note on my kitchen counter. Blue ballpoint ink. Neat, childlike handwriting. "Gone to find water. Back soon." My hand is shaking as I write this. I'm posting it to every forum, every subreddit, every place where lost hikers might look. Don't go to Kaskamack Woods. Don't look for Twin Springs. If you see a campsite that shouldn't exist, turn around and walk away. And if you hear a voice you know, calling from a fire tower, don't answer. Because the campsite is hungry, and once it knows your name, it never forgets. It just waits.